So we're going to make a lovely healthy tomato soup using onions, carrots, sweet potatoes and lentils. So I'm just going to go over chopping an onion again, because this is a very important skill. Now I'm going to liquidize this. You may not have a liquidizer or smoothie maker or vegetable mill available, in which case it is very important that you chop your vegetables nice and small so they cook down well, and you then don't get a lumpy soup. So I've peeled the onion. I'm going to slice my thin strips. And then chop. Okay, so go through that once more, your thin slices. Little bits at the end being difficult. There we go. So put those in with the other onions. So I've given you recipe details for doing a larger amount for 6 portions that I'm doing here, or a smaller amount for just for 2 people. Okay, the next thing to do is the carrot. So we're going to carefully cut that in half and then place it on its flat surface so it's nice and stable. Cut that into 3 strips, put them together and then chop them up. Sweet potato, same principle, carefully chopping it through the middle so you've got a flat surface to put it on, into strips, and these are still a bit big, so again onto its flat surface, into smaller strips, and push them all together and chop them. Keeping the tip of the knife always in contact with the chopping board and just moving the heel of the knife. If you lift the tip of the knife and then start chopping like this, that's when you're more likely to cut yourself. Oh, I forgot to do that one into strips. There we go. And we have your red split lentils here, available from most supermarkets. A large tin of tomatoes, which is the most economical way of using tomatoes. If again you're not going to if you haven't got facilities to liquidize your soup at the end, you may wish to choose chopped tomatoes. But whole tomatoes are the cheapest way to purchase your tomatoes. So the last thing we've got to do is your garlic. So you can squish that, take the peel off. Chop your little lines. Keeping the tip of the knife again on the chopping board, and then tip the knife on the chopping board and just squidging your garlic to crush it. Okay. Now that's everything all prepared. You could easily, I've opted, as it's a tomato soup, for an orange colour scheme, but you could quite easily put some celery in there, some peppers. I would choose red or orange peppers, and I'm not going to add any chili powder or any spices, but again I'll tell you when you could add those. So I'm just going to heat my pan up, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of oil. Use olive oil. This is rapeseed oil because I like to use it because it's a healthy oil with a high smoking point. And then I'm going to add my onions into this, and I'm going to sweat them as we did previously with the vegetarian bean casserole. Just coat those in the oil, and then I'm going to leave those to sweat for a few minutes, for 3 to 4 minutes on their own, and then I'm going to add in the other vegetables at that point. So you can hear the heat just coming through there. Just pop the lid on and let those soften. So the onions have now softened slightly. They're not completely sweated down, but that's absolutely fine for this, because we're going to add the garlic in next, and they're going to continue softening for a bit longer. So the garlic goes in, and then your carrots. Mix those in. And then your sweet potato. And this would be at the stage that you would put any herbs or spices that you wanted to put in. You just leave this just to cook off for a few more minutes, let the onion soften a little bit further, and all the vegetables just to start to cook on the outside. Put the lid back on. This has had a couple of minutes cooking time. I'm going to add the lentils and mix those in. And then my tin of tomatoes. And we're going to give that a good rinse out. So there will be about another half a tin's worth of water going in there from rinsing out the tin. Okay. That's a bit of a stir. And whilst that's coming up to the boil, we can add some seasoning in here. So I'm going to add some pepper. You want to add your pepper during cooking rather than at the end, because that way you get the flavour of the pepper rather than the hot spiciness of the pepper. A little bit of salt. As I mentioned yesterday, that I'm not a great fan of adding a lot of salt to food, but I find that tomatoes and tomato recipes particularly need salt. So this is a big tin of tomatoes, so I'm actually going to add 4 good pinches of salt. You'll only need 1 pinch of salt if you're using a small tin of tomatoes. And then some sugar to cut across the acidity of the tomatoes. So I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of sugar. A smaller tin, it would be probably about half a tablespoon. We'll let this come up to the simmering point, and then we're going to simmer it for 30 to 40 minutes. The lentils take 34 to 40 minutes to cook, so that is really your key point, because the carrots and potatoes will easily be cooked within that time. So if you decide that you really don't like lentils, and were to omit the lentils, you'd still need to cook it for 30 to 40 minutes to cook your carrot and your potatoes. Lentils do actually count as one of your 5 a day, as they are a vegetable. So this is a very healthy soup with your onions, carrots, sweet potato, lentils. That's 4 of your 5 a day, just in a very simple soup. So this, as you can see, is just coming up to the simmering point. Just going to give it a nice stir and make sure that it's at simmering temperature all the way through. Which you can see it is, because the bubbles are starting to come up there. So I'm going to turn it down and put the lid on and then leave it just simmering away for 30 to 40 minutes. I will maybe come and stir it intermittently during that time, just to make sure that it hasn't got any vegetables got stuck on the bottom and are burning, and to make sure that there's still plenty of liquid in the saucepan. So this has been simmering away for 40 minutes. As you can see, the lentils have changed colour and are more sort of anemic looking, and are fluffed out and are all soft. If you find a piece of potato, you can squish it against the side of the pan and it'll give. So it's all cooked. So this is ready to be liquidized. So I've got various methods that we can use to liquidize your soup. So I guess this is a potato masher, so you can get that in to mash down your soup a little bit, which is a very straightforward, simple way. This is a vegetable mill, so you can put your soup in there and mix that, and that will also break down your soup. My preferred method is to use one of these chaps, which just liquidizes your soup. So you can see it's starting to liquidize the soup up. So this is now all liquidized up. So I'm going to take out, and we're ready to serve. Nice, thick, tasty, healthy main meal soup. You could actually also use this as a tomato sauce for a pasta, because you've obviously got your protein in there from the lentils. So I found this in the back of my cupboard, and this is actually the liquidizer that I had when I was at university. It has a liquidizer attachment, and then you can also attach this to it and add, and then you've got a hand whisk as well. So these are quite sort of a handy, compact gadget to take to university, because you can use that for making cakes and things.